We're back on Wooden Sticks, as always today, recording from the Aquarius Home Services studio. It is a Friday, and hopefully you're catching us on the weekend, enjoying your time. We appreciate you listening. We got a great guest for you today. His name is Alex Stalock. He's been on the show before. NHL goaltender extraordinaire, played for the Minnesota Wild. Back in college, of course, played for the UMD Bulldogs, hailing from the great city of South St. Paul, where he played his high school hockey. And Al's going to be a part of our broadcast team at the FanDuel Sports Network this year. He's going to get some time in the booth with Ryan Carter and Anthony LaPanta. They're going to be the team that we put out there. Lou Nanny, of course, Wes Wall is a big part of our broadcast as well. And so it's really cool to have that goaltending analyst in the booth. And Al's got unbelievably cool opinions, and he's been a big part of these training camps. And so we're going to get his feel for how things are sitting with the Minnesota Wild. We're going to certainly get in to some talk about Kirill Kaprizov, but Al is also a great wagering mind. He's come to Canterbury Park on numerous occasions and spent time in the press box with myself and Paul Allen. We text and talk more than people know about spotting up on whether it's games or horses. So we're going to get into some DraftKings Sportsbook odds and tie it into Wooden Sticks, the NHL side of things. We're going to talk about goal scoring. We're going to talk about MVP voting. We might get into some Stanley Cup odds, and then we're going to handicap the Wild season for you via some of those numbers that come up in terms of goals scored by superstar players and wins garnered by goaltenders. And it's a big year for Philip Gustafsson as the number one and Jesper Wallstedt as his young protege. And so Alex Stalock has all kinds of keen insight in terms of that, and I can't wait to pick his brain and get into some of that really important stuff in terms of the Wild season, which is upon us. Our first broadcast is next week. We're 5 or 6 days away from that preseason broadcast on the 25th. We're going to do 3 preseason games on our television network, 25th, 28th, and the 30th, all home games. So you're likely going to see more star players when they play at home. And certainly that'll be a fun kind of a tune-up for what lies ahead. Less than 3 weeks away. The opener is in St. Louis on October the 9th. So Alex Stalock today to break it all down. We're going to handicap via the DraftKings Sportsbook app, which is so much fun because if you head south down 35 way to Diamond Joe, it's about a 90-minute drive from the Twin Cities. It's worth your time to check some of this stuff out before the season gets going. I've got some friends, some listeners that are going down, 2 different sets of listeners that are heading south for the weekend to play some football, but they wanted to spot up on NHL hockey. And so I thought it'd be a fun time to have Alex Stalock on and have that conversation. And that is coming up today on the show. If you want to send your input, maybe some questions you might have, maybe some sports betting takes that tie into the National Hockey League season, you can ping me on X or Twitter at Gorgomatic21. I would love to hear from you. And any guests that you'd like to have as training camp continues, as we get closer to the regular season. Certainly appreciate your input in that regard. Speaking of appreciation, I've got a great appreciation for our partners here on the show. Without them, there would be no podcast. I'll start with my dear friend John Schweitz and the great people at Minnesota Masonic Charities. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the Minnesota Masonic Charities. When you think about the Masons, I get it. You think about the funny hats, those pancake breakfasts, which are phenomenal. My dear friend John Schweitz and I have chatted about this, and it's so much more than that. They've got the Masonic home over in Bloomington. They've got the hospital for the children over at the U of M. They are the largest fraternal organization in terms of charitable needs in our country, and they deserve a ton of recognition. So thank you, Minnesota Masonic Charities, for all you do and for supporting us over here at Talk North, and a special thanks to my good friend, John Schweitz. I've got some dear friends that head outdoors every fall on the hunting side of things. Greg Redroot comes to mind at the top of that list, so why not thank the folks at Onyx Fish and Onyx Maps.
Have you ever driven past a piece of land and wondered who owns that? Or maybe you need to know exactly where a property line runs. That's where Onyx Hunt comes in. And it's not just for hunters. There are folks using Onyx for their jobs every day throughout the country. From farmers and ranchers mapping out their fields, wildland firefighters navigating rough terrain, to construction workers needing to know who owns what property, this app offers something for everyone. If you need the best land ownership maps, aerial imagery, and property boundaries in your pocket, Onyx Hunt is the tool for the job. Try it free for 7 days Download OnX Hunt in the app or Google Play Store, or visit onxmaps.com/hunt to get started.
And finally, our dear friends at Lexus of Maplewood and Wayzata. All right, we're back on Wooden Sticks, as always, recording today from the Aquarius Home Services studio. Wild preseason about to start, training camp already underway. A perfect time to connect with former Minnesota Wild goaltender Alex Stalock. Al, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back. And how do you bring up training camp? And it's a fun type of year to be a fan. A fun time of year to be a fan. It was a different type of year when you're the player, and when you become a veteran player, it's a little bit more. The nerves ramp up a little bit more, and it's time to go back to work and earn a job. Sleeping a lot
it's
better
funny
right
you bring
now.
that up.
Not playing.
I think there is some anxiety involved. I talked to some of the guys about this at Media Day a couple days ago, and that's the first official day where they're actually, this routine where the players come back, they're getting their physicals, they go to all these different stations, they do a ton of media. It feels like the first day of school. Is that how it felt for you as a player?
Yeah, I think so. And throughout your career, there's just different stages to it, and when you're young, you just go into it, not knowing really what to expect, what's going on. You just show up when the itinerary tells you to be there. You go through, your schedule, and then you figure out where you're going to end up once camp shakes out. And, and then you have a chance to be an NHL player, and you have a feeling for it. You're around guys, a group of guys that have been coming to yours. You have a team that you've established, and then the end of your career where you start coming to the end and the unknowns, and you're fighting for a spot, and you have young kids that are coming in, and they want to play in the NHL and take your job. It's just throughout your career, it's funny how you prep for training camp, the mindset. Obviously, physically, you want to be in the best shape possible and ready to go and show that you have a good summer and make the team. But you never know. It's team shifts, and obviously there's one team at the end of the year that win the Stanley Cup. So there's a lot of changes every year to 31 other teams, and you never know what the front office and up top, or scouts, whatever they've been doing in the offseason to prepare, and their idea going into the year. They obviously have something penciled in, and you just hope you're part of the plan going forward. And as you get older, you understand that side that things are going to shake up and things change. And I think the anxiety part, definitely, this is the weeks leading up to when training camp undergoes. It's a few weeks where the sleep definitely becomes shorter, and the stress ramps up a little bit.
So as a player, Al, how much stock did you put into your opportunities in preseason games? These are different looking rosters, and for you specifically as the goaltender, you've got a different group of players in front of you. Some of these guys are going to be NHL guys. Some of these guys are going to be American League guys. So how much did you put into how you played in the preseason, how comfortable you felt? Because you're likely with 5-6 preseason games, you're likely going to only play in a couple, 2 or 3. How did that go for you in your preparation for the season?
Yeah, and for a goalie, it's a little different. Obviously, for me, I like the game days because you could get back into a routine of your pregame meals, your pregame naps. Even just getting to the rink and going through your stretching routine and your warm up and figuring that all out again is always good to get reps before game one starts. And it's a crucial time, and obviously, I mean, any sport, you see NFL, they want to cut back on preseason games, whether it's injury or whatever it may be. You're not playing full NHL rosters early on in preseason. You get a lot of the younger guys, and you got different lineups in front of you every night. But game wise, obviously, the front office staff and coaches want to see you perform. But I think as a player, obviously, you want to feel comfortable, and getting back. That was the part that got me set up. And now, for most of my career, I was in a backup role a lot of times. So unless that the number one got hurt, you had another maybe week, depending on your schedule, of preparation and practice. So for me, the practice part of it, the training part, was really the time to really ramp it up and get back up to speed and get full speed in practice and just compete your butt off and be ready when that time came to get your first game of the season. And there were years where it was 2 weeks into the year, just how the schedule was laid out to get your first game.
So you had to use that time to stay. I mean, really, the practice time counts a little bit more when you know you're not going to be playing a game early in the season. I've had this conversation with Marc-Andre Fleury the last couple of seasons, and he would talk about staying after at practice, doing little things to mimic, that fatigue factor that you need to have come game time, because the last couple of seasons, it was the same situation for Flower. He would go 6, 8, 10, 12 days in between starts. And so in his eyes, that practice time was gold for him to kind of keep his legs strong and keep his conditioning up, because when game time comes, you have to be ready. And if you're not getting games, that was his only way of really being physically ready to go.
Absolutely. And I was fortunate. I learned that at a younger age. Actually, a coach I had in the USHL, Mark Carlson, who still is in Cedar Rapids, and he's been there since day one with that team. But I remember he pulled me in, and I went down there right after high school, and I had no clue. You're in high school hockey, you play junior hockey. If you get the opportunity to play junior hockey, you're definitely one of the top kids on your high school team. And how hard did you have to practice, and what were your practice habits like? Well, I found out in the first week or two that my practice habits must have sucked, because I got pulled into his office, and he was on me. He's like, practice has to be harder than a game. You got to work harder in practice than you do in a game. You really have to commit to this. And I came out of there like, wow, all right, well, I guess I wasn't practicing hard enough. And he was a hard coach, and it made sense. And I learned at a young age. And then, I was fortunate to have goalie partners on the way up. And one specifically is in San Jose, I had Antti Niemi early in my career. And just to see the time he put in before and after practice, just the little stuff that he would go over, it was so good to see. I mean, that was right after he won a cup in Chicago, and there was nobody else better to learn from than the time he put in. I was like, holy cow. It was to another level of going over goals that went in the night before, saves he didn't like. He'd recreate 10 or 12 drills from the game before situationally that he'd go over after practice.
Wow. Yeah, and I think, again, it's funny how you're like a sponge as a young player in the league, and you're trying to figure out the right way to navigate it. And clearly you did, because I remember vividly late in your career how valuable you were, not just to the Wild, but to other teams on that roster. And then, to me, Al, another big part of that role as one of the goaltenders on any team is the chemistry you either create or get in the way of, because everybody wants to play. Everybody wants to be in the net. And when you're not in the net, your attitude, and I know from talking to your teammates with Minnesota and some of the folks in the organization, how that backup goalie handles that dictates a lot of what goes on behind the scenes. And as you know, in hockey, that matters.
100%. And we go back to Flower. We brought up Flower a few times already. And, you know, how much, he helps Gus too, in the little things, the mental side of the game, the preparation. It's been so important for not only it is the goalie tandem, the numbers they put up the last couple of years. And there's a reason, obviously, he's got all the skill in the world, Flower, and the talent. But there's a reason he sticks around so long, is people want him in the locker room, and it says a lot about him. And I mean, he's still going to get a preseason game this fall. That's how bad people want him in his room. So it's a side of the game that you don't see on a TV broadcast or a radio broadcast. And maybe you have a team a year that you get to see on one of those HBO specials, or if a local team does one of the behind the scenes shows. But even then, you don't truly get to see what happens behind closed doors, and the importance of the chemistry in a locker room can win a lot of games on the ice, and the importance of those roles. And not only goalie, but in the forward defense position, if you have guys that, are sitting out nightly, is if they're being, good leaders and steering the guys that are playing ahead of them in the right direction and pushing them. It makes for a great locker room, and to go 82 games and carry it into playoffs is huge throughout a year.
I want to have a great conversation today about Kirill Kaprizov, some of the things going on around Wild training camp, and kind of paging forward to the season. But before we get to that, for our listeners, you're now making a segue in your career. You started this last year, going into the broadcast role, and you're going to be a big part of our television broadcast. I think you're going to make an appearance during the preseason. You're going to make a bunch of appearances in the booth with LaPanta during the regular season as our analyst up in the booth. And you had some time to do that in San Jose last year. And how much are you enjoying it? And Al, how much are you looking forward to the next chapter, being back on the Wild side on our broadcasts?
Oh, I'm really looking forward to it, being involved. Obviously, I was so fortunate and to wear a Wild jersey. And we talk with former coach and player of the Wild, Darby Hendrickson, and how many times throughout the time I was here, and I was fortunate to have him here. But we just talk about how lucky we are to do this. Like, not many people get to do this, and how cool it was, and now to have the opportunity to work on the other side and talk about the game and still be around the Wild, still be around the organization, still be around you guys, training staff, players. It's you're back to feeling like you're part of a team, and I'm really looking forward to it. And the opportunity I had with San Jose was pretty special last year, to call some radio games with Dan Rusanowski, who's been with the Sharks from day one. Unbelievable at his job. True professional, taught me the way to prep for a game. And, it's a whole different way than prepping when you're playing. But, yeah, as far as the next stage of my career, I've had some good colleagues, obviously, and friends to bounce stuff off. Obviously, being close with Karts and you and I, the relationship we have. I've been able to talk with Brian Boucher throughout the summer to pick his brain on this side of it. And I'm super excited. And obviously, a training camp coming up here to get a rep in the booth with the Panther is super exciting, and to have cards there throughout the year as well is huge. And I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a ton of fun, and hopefully it's exciting year on the ice as well.
Well, there are always perks to every job in the National Hockey League, and when you work with Anthony LaPanta and you travel with the Minnesota Wild, one of those perks is the invitation to the LaPanta dinners on the road. And Ryan Carter and Wes Walls can attest to this. You can't put a price tag on a good time, but I can promise you we can give you a pretty good estimate, and you're going to pay for that good time. But it is awesome, and he does pick out some of the most incredible restaurants in every city, and you're going to be a part of that with the Panther, and that's going to be special.
It is. And I'm really looking forward to it. That side of it, the dinners, you're obviously not going to be with the players anymore doing player dinners. And now we're with the staff and the Panther. I mean, you can follow him on social media, and even just his dinners at home are, I don't know if elegant's the word, or you know what I mean, is succulent. The pictures are, I mean, you can taste it from the other side of the screen sometimes, and everything's set up right, from the wine bottle, the labels fitting perfect, the steaks picture perfect. It's all good, and I just hope that those road dinners are as good as what you see sometimes on the phone.
That's a fair point. So let's get down to it. I think a lot of our listeners here the last couple of weeks, and from some of the interactions I've had on social media, there's a lot of anxiety in town. This is, as you know, Al, being a fellow Minnesotan, this is a wounded set of fans in all areas, from the Vikings to the Wolves to the Twins now, and even the Wild with Kirill Kaprizov. Billy Guerin and Kirill yesterday at the rink, I had a chance to be over there and take some of that in, said all the right things. A lot of smiles, a lot of chuckles. But let's cut to the chase. If you're one of his teammates, and this was brought up yesterday by Michael Russo, they're saying it's not a distraction. I have my doubts, and only because, Al, this is Kirill Kaprizov. This is one of the bona fide superstars in the league, and this is a huge part of your opportunity as a fellow teammate to have a chance to win the Stanley Cup. And we're going to get to some of these DraftKings sportsbook odds in terms of MVP, and that'll validate this conversation. I'm not even going to ask you if it's a distraction, because I know it is. How much of a distraction right now is this? Because everybody's talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's on It's on every podcast. It's on the websites. You see it all. But the other thing that's going on too is in Edmonton with Connor McDavid. So there's other news going on that's taking place in the NHL, and um, you don't know what's going on if one's waiting for the other one to sign or how that's all playing out. But the stuff you hear here locally is all positive, right? But at the same time, if it's not good until it's done, right? Can you really sit back and relax and you don't know what's going on inside the room, what the reasoning is. But when you have a player of that caliber, and what you saw he can do for a team, it's just to energize and to have that confidence that you have a bona fide superstar that at any point can take over a game. And yeah, he's skating with you. He's showing up to camp. He's there, but it's the long term aspect of it. And the longer he goes unsigned is what could happen next. And you have veterans in that room that are hoping that this can get done before hopefully I'm in the booth by preseason game, but you hope it's by game one of the season, because anytime you don't have 97 on the ice, it's a much different game that you're watching out there.
And we're all trying to read the tea leaves, and so being there in person at Tria Rink yesterday, we're recording on Friday. I was over there on Wednesday and Thursday, and I got to tell you, Al, I've got the opportunity and the privilege to get to know Billy Guerin and his staff pretty well. And Billy Guerin, to me, what I love about him is he does wear his heart on his sleeve, and you kind of know how he's doing day by day. And if you're on the road, and you'll see this when you're traveling this year, and the Wild are in a slump and they play we'll call it a clunker, a tough game on the road, Billy Guerin is, you can feel the intensity and the frustration just being in the same area as him, whether it's the team bus, the hallway outside the locker room. So I was really going to pay close attention yesterday, because if he felt, in my mind, that things had gone to a fork in the road where maybe it wasn't going to go his way, I really felt no matter what he said, you would feel that intensity, and maybe he would air Kirill Kaprizov out. I saw just the opposite. I saw a guy that almost looked like the cat that ate the canary, that felt, I could just feel the positivity, and Billy's not a guy that can fake it. So we'll see. And just, seeing Kirill Kaprizov up close, having a chance to converse with him a couple days ago for a few minutes, it feels like it's super close. My question to you is, if you're Kirill's agent and you know that the last couple of seasons there's been a significant injury where he's missed a lot of time, how long do you want to roll the dice? And I understand his agent's probably waiting for McDavid to set the market, and I get all of that. But knowing that an injury could pop up during training camp, during preseason, and especially here in a couple of weeks when the regular season starts, if you're his agent and if you're Kirill Kaprizov, how comfortable are you waiting, knowing an injury would really reset the market and you would lose a ton of money?
Yeah, he might want to be on a phone with an insurance company at that point. He don't want to be risking and dealing with that. Now, I was never up in that $100 million contract range, unfortunately.
Close. I understand
close,
that.
very, very close. But it's it's a number that, how many years ago when the cap was 70 million or whatever, and will there ever be a $15 million player? And now you're talking upwards of that. It's a different money, but the cap seems to be moving. The game's in a great spot, and like you said, setting the market. Is McDavid going to do it and set the market up there? And you don't know what goes into these deals. You're talking deals like that, franchise changing deals. There's got to be so many little details in there that it might just be something that it's going to take time. You don't truly know when they sat down and really started working on it, because July 1st is a busy time for Billy and putting together the rest of the lineup, right? And it might be something that they briefly spoke to and touched on last year throughout the summer. Here's when we'll get back to hammering this out. And it might just be something where they're going back and forth on little details that in this contract are going to make sense for Kirill, at the end of the contract or at the beginning, whatever it may be. How you've seen around the league the creativeness of some of these GMs, how they're getting these deals and how they make them fit. And these GMs are doing it in a way where now the NHLPA and the NHL needs to come back in a way and say, hey, we can't structure it that way. They're figuring out really creative ways and loopholes to get these contracts, these big contracts done. And whether they're getting paid, 700, they're getting paid the league minimum 750 or 800, whatever it is now. And then they're getting huge bonuses. So you never know how something like this is going to get structured as far as numbers and what the AAV is going to be, how it's going to affect the cap yearly. And there's just so much to it that, hey, it could just be something as simple as that.
All right, so let's now get down to the numbers game. I love the numbers aspect of the game. You've spent some time out at Canterbury with Paul Allen and myself. We've talked about stuff like this. I got a bunch of our listeners. I got 2 different groups that are heading down to Iowa this weekend for some Sunday football at Diamond Joe's Casino, the sportsbook, DraftKings Sportsbook, and they want to get their hockey bets in for the year. So they're like, if you've got Stalock on, can you guys have a brief discussion on some of these odds? And so the first thing these guys sent me was when you log on to DraftKings Sportsbook and you click on NHL hockey for the season, they have these built-in parlays that are popular with some of their customers. And one of the parlays that popped up, it caught my eye. It's a 25-1 parlay. So if you bet $100, you get back $2,600 if it hits. And it's 3 players in the NHL to hit the 50-goal mark this coming season. Leon Draisaitl, who's done it 3 straight years, so that seems like a slam dunk. Austin Matthews, who recently just scored 69 goals, and our guy Kirill Kaprizov. That's the parlay. Draisaitl, Matthews, and Kirill to all get 50. And Al, I understand that 50 goals is something Kirill hasn't done, but he's been in the mid to high 40s a couple times here. And if he stays healthy, I feel like this could be the key to the parlay. But that, to me, at 25-1, I told my guys, like, that's a risk I would take. How about you?
Yeah, no, I mean, those are guys that are going to score goals. If you look at Draisaitl and where he sets up and where he likes to score, it's, he's almost a little bit like an Ovechkin, but on the other side of the ice. And obviously he's playing with one of the most dynamic players in the NHL, and Connor McDavid. And I was fortunate to spend some time there after being in Minnesota, a couple months in Edmonton, and being able to practice with them and watch them, the way they prep. And when they would practice their power play, when you watch it, I mean, it's at a success rate where it's been historically high in the past. And they go over, you got teams that set up certain setups, and those guys would literally just get together and they'd tell each other, let's just play pond hockey. And it's literally what they'd say. And that's what they go out and do. I mean, obviously they like Bouchard up top with the heavy shot, but you watch Connor play, he has no set position out there. He's flying around and opening things up. And, that power play is very lethal. And for him to get 50 is very, very gettable. And you bring up a guy like Austin Matthews, who, is 2 years away from scoring over 60 goals. And he's got the ability to do that. And then you see his release and the way he shoots the puck. It's like a Bedard in Chicago. They can score from anywhere. And it's not just a guy that's going to, bang and crash around the net, but he can score from distance. And then our guy here, and he does it many different ways. And he's in front of the net banging away. And that's what you talk about is the injury is he plays a heavy, hard game. And, but it's a very viable 3 guys that, you get a list of 20 guys out there in the NHL. Those guys definitely are going to be at the top of the list. If you got guys driving down to Diamond Joe's this weekend, I think it's a safe bet, and it's an exciting one. Is why would you not want to see goal scoring in the NHL? And that's coming from an ex goalie, and you love to see the scoring, and it's fun to watch. That's what the kids watch. That's what my son watches. He watches the goals. He's not in there. He's not watching block shots. He's not watching goalies make big saves, and they want to see the goals. They want to see the celebrations, and that's the way the game's trending.
Yeah, so take a look at it if you're one of our listeners. DraftKings Sportsbook, Draisaitl, Matthews, and Kirill, 50-plus goals each at 25-1. I threw a couple of bucks on that. The other numbers we looked at were for the Hart Trophy, and this was a big part of the conversation, Al, last year, because before Kaprizov got hurt, he had taken over as the favorite around Christmas time in the MVP race on these sports books all over North America. He was the betting favorite. Right now, before the season, Connor McDavid is favored to win the Hart Trophy at 2-1. No surprise. McDavid's the first name that comes to mind. McKinnon, second favorite at 5-1. Leon Draisaitl, fourth favorite at 10-1. Pasternak, fifth favorite at 15-1. And Kirill Kaprizov, third betting favorite for the Hart Trophy at 8-1. Now, I think that's important because as these numbers get thrown around, and a lot was made about the contract that Kirill, the offer that he didn't sign, and fans were a little bit up in arms on that. If there's that much respect for this guy nationally, when you see 8-1 third betting choice at a place like a reputable place like DraftKings, what does that tell you, Al, as you handicap this scenario? Are they banking on Kirill Kaprizov playing the entire season here? Are they banking on him being moved somewhere else? Like Carolina could be one of the teams that has popped up as a suitor to try to make a big trade and garner his services and sign that extension there? Or is this just, in your eyes, the fact that Kirill Kaprizov is not only a top 10 in this league, top 10 player, maybe a top 5 if you look at those betting odds?
Well, I think, I mean, the heart is the importance to your team. And, obviously you're hearing the news out of Edmonton. Leon Draisaitl said Connor's got a different, he's got a different look in his eye this year, which if he does, that's a little scary because how he's the last few years, I mean, ever since he's came into the league, he's been a different player. But, his goal is to win, and he wants to win so bad up there. And, it's hard to bet against a guy that, his mentality, the way he's wired, he wants to be the best every single night. But that being said, I mean, you saw, the first half of the year, what Kirill did and where he was at and the difference he makes. And, being around it more and being able to watch it more now, being done with the game, it's his ability to take over a game is pretty dang impressive. And, there's a reason that he's behind Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon, and right behind them. When I say that is, he has that ability to completely control the game. And he's got that Connor McDavid to him. He's got that Nathan McKinnon. He wants the puck on his stick at all times. And, how many players truly want to have the puck all the time? He wants to carry it through the neutral zone. He wants it in the offensive zone. There's some guys in the past that have scored a lot of goals that, I've played with that, that obviously they're responsible in the defensive zone, but do they want to carry it through the neutral zone? Do they want it just in the offensive zone next to the net? This guy wants a puck on a stick all the time. You can see it when you're in the rink. He's always calling for it. He's always making himself available. And those are the guys that they're fun to watch on a nightly basis. Is the guys that, I guess a good word for it is, demand the puck at all times.
Yeah, and that compete. I think of that compete. You talk about the practice habits, the intensity, and McDavid, McKinnon, and Kirill, top 3 for the Hart. Now let's put your wild analyst hat on and let's look at some wild numbers. The first one is an official number at DraftKings Sportsbook. The rest of these numbers after the first number I throw out, Al, are numbers that I just put out there that seem like fair numbers. So I looked at goaltender wins this season in the National Hockey League, and Philip Gustafson kind of, I thought, took a big step in his career last year with the help of Marc-Andre Fleury. Now Fleury's gone. Now he's the guy, and he's got Jesper Wallstedt, likely his fellow countryman, young goalie, coming up to help kind of, the torch has been passed, and now he'll have to take over that role of mentoring the young guy and being the number 1 in Minnesota. The over-under on DraftKings Sportsbook on Philip Gustafson wins is 29.5. Your thoughts?
I think you can get over. I think he has the ability to get over that. You see the runs he gets on. I don't want to call him streaky, but when he's feeling, when his game's on, and he's his form and everything, he's got his feet under him. His game's simple, and not only him, but you look at the decor in front of him as well, right? He has the ability to keep teams off the scoreboard, on a nightly basis, and I think that number there is very gettable on for him. They're going to be able to put the puck in the net. Obviously, you got to help your Kirill. We've taken care of that. I think it's a power play that's only going to get better. I think when you sort the penalty kill out, it's been a talking point the last couple of years. If that number can improve just a little bit, that only helps. That helps the goalie, and obviously the goalie is the most important part of the kill. We talk about that a lot. And yeah, that number, you look at it, the team that's in front of them, obviously you look at a Central Division, that is tough and that is strong. But to get 30 wins, I think is a very, very big gettable number for Gus. And you never know going into a year. I think you have an idea as a staff and as a management group. Hey, do we want to split this? Is it going to be a 60-20? Is it going to be a 65-15? What's their number? You stay healthy. You want your goalie fresh. Obviously, the goal is to get in playoffs. But I think with Wallstead being his first full year potentially in the NHL, are they going to throw 25, 30 games at him? I don't know. I don't know what their number is at this point, but if Gus gets, call it 60 games, I do believe he's very capable of winning at least 30.
So last year, to your point, Gustafsson played in 58 games. He had 31 wins last year, and that was with a superstar goalie, yes, in the twilight of his career, but Fleury had a good year last year and was very dependable. So I look at 29
especially
and a half.
Earlier in the year.
Right? I look at 29 and a half, and if Gustafsson stays healthy and the Wild have a decent season, I don't see any reason he can't go over the number. So I like the over. Now, I made a number on Wallstead, and I think Gustafsson plays at least 60. So I'm gonna handicap this by saying, okay, I think Gustafsson plays 60, Al. Let's give Wallstead, in a perfect world, which again, hard to know, sitting here in late September, but let's say 22 games. I got a number on Wallstead when you factor in that some of these games end up in overtime or shootout losses. I've got him at 10.5 wins, and I think that's a fair number. If he has a good year and he can stay healthy, what are his opportunities to maybe go over that number at 10.5?
Yeah, that's say he gets 20, 22 starts in that number, and you got to think. I haven't fully looked at the schedule, how many back-to-backs there are, and sometimes those can be tough, whether they're traveling or whatever it may be. But yeah, I mean, if you can get 10, you call it 11, you got the number at 10.5. If you can get 11 wins out of your backup in 20 or 22 games, I think that you would take it right now. Now, anything over that obviously is probably a bonus. To put points away like that, you're coming away from back-to-backs or spot starts. Say you haven't played in 2 weeks, that's where it can be tough. But it'll be fun to start going into the rink and watching practice habits. See where his game's at now that he's been playing pro hockey in North America a few years now. Obviously, it takes time in this position to not only physically, you can have all the tools physically, but in between the years is where it really makes a difference. At 7:00 at nights on game nights, and it'll be fun to watch. It's always fun to watch a high prospect, a goalie that's been the organization's put a lot of time into, and you hope he's ready, and now's the time. And yeah, it's an exciting year to see what he can do.
All right, final. As far as gambling goes or projecting questions for you, this is the last one I got for you. And I thought this was fascinating. So I've made numbers on 5 key Wild forwards, and we're going to turn this into kind of a horse race, Al. You get to only pick one, where if you had to bet all your money on the over, that's the one guy you're betting. So let's listen together as we go through these 5 key guys. Tarasenko, 16.5 goals. Ek, 21.5 goals. Rossi, 23.5 goals. Boldy, 33.5 total goals. And Kirill the Thrill, 43.5 total goals. You can only bet one. You got to bet all your monies on the over. Which guy? And then give us a few reasons why you like that guy to eclipse whatever that number is.
Gosh, I think you look at I like the Tarasenko bet. He's a guy that you've seen for St. Louis for years. Put pucks in the back of the net. He's bounced around a little bit. I think there's a comfort level now with Kirill here, and if he has the ability to get on a power play, with Kirill, and you talk about a Draisaitl, a guy that can shoot and can score from distance from different areas. If he gets power play time, he has the ability to get on the ice with Kirill. I think 16 and a half. I mean, I don't see how he couldn't get 17 goals if he stays healthy all year. I get that he's getting older. He's getting towards the end of his career, but the ability to score goals is something that I don't think goes away. And you look at a guy that played for the Wild years ago, Danny Heatley, right? Like,
yep.
He could always score wherever he was, right? And he has the ability to score. He never lost. You don't lose a shot. The one thing you do lose is speed and getting to an area on time and getting to the right spot. So that's going to be something, obviously, you're going to see through training camp early in the year. Now, if his skating's still there and he can get around the ice just as well as he has in the past, I think he's definitely has the ability to get to that number. And the thing with Kirill playing in zone is he does so much of the work, like a McDavid, where they maintain the puck in the zone. They're going to all different areas, and he gets to a spot. Tarasenko, his shot is lethal enough that he's going to beat goalies a lot of times. And the way it's set up, you get a guy like Yak in front of that net. I mean, it could be a pretty good power play, and obviously I don't know what they have set up right now for units, but I think he's going to find his way onto one of the two. And if he gets the ability to play with Kirill, I think they're pretty good. Could be a pretty good connection there.
I love that you picked that one out because I think it's one of the bigger talkers coming into the season. And I'll just say this: I've watched Tarasenko like you from the other side for many, many years. You got to see him up close and personal. Playing against him, but he looks like he's in the best shape he's been in years. And then I know it's just a scrimmage, and we're going to preface it by saying, I get it. It's training camp and it's a scrimmage. But to your point, Al, I watched him score 3 goals in a 45-minute scrimmage with the clock running the entire time. So these guys probably got 8, 10, maybe 11 shifts. He scored 1 goal on Gustafsson from an impossible angle because he was able to read the situation and know that Gustafsson wasn't set and there was traffic kind of impeding Gus's vision. He tucked it right in between his legs from an impossible angle. His ability to shoot the puck cannot be understated. And if he is indeed going to get some good run on that power play, if you can get, let's just say he goes over 16 and a half. Let's say he gets close to 20 goals. The other guys, to me, if you lock up Kirill, I think anywhere between 40 and 55 is logical. Boldy, to me, is sitting on a year where he's going to start now, I think, dipping into that 35 to 40 conversation. Rossi, to me, is a guaranteed 20 to 30 goal scorer. And Eck, with the way he plays around the net, is going to get you 20 to 30 as well. The Tarasenko X factor cannot be understated. So I love that you picked that one out of the 5, and I think it's the exact same bet I would make. I think he's a guy that can make a real impact on this power play, and they need that.
Yeah, it's the little things like you mentioned, and I'll be down there here in the next little few days watching some of the stuff. But it's those guys. It reminds me of like an Eric Stahl. They have a knack for scoring and knowing when goalies aren't set, and just throwing pucks to the net and catching them when they're moving, or when they don't have the ability to see it. They really are smart when they see, flash screens is a word they use now in the game, when a little bit of traffic cruises through the slot, and it's just the timing of the release. And you see McKinnon do it a lot when he rolls up to the high slot and he throws a 70-mile-an-hour wrist shot from out just inside the blue line that finds its way through into the net, because the timing of the release is smart. And yeah, he's definitely a guy, obviously, with the, how his training camp's going, with him being in shape. That really excites me to see him, how he gets going. And it's the health part is staying healthy and staying hungry and wanting it and really wanting to be here for the right reasons is exciting. And I'm looking forward to seeing him play with Kirill.
Well, great insight, Al. Looking forward to connecting with you at training camp next week, and then watching this preseason unfold, getting a chance to hear you in the booth with LaPanta is going to be awesome. And then in under 3 weeks, it's hard to believe, October 9th, it starts for real. The Minnesota Wild will start with a road game in St. Louis. what is it now, 20 days from where we sit as we record here on a Friday. So, yeah, congrats on the new gig. I know Wild fans are going to love hearing from you on a nightly basis, and I can't wait to work with you, Al.
I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for having me on, and I'm looking forward to being around the crew at the rink and a lot of the hockey talk sitting up in the bleachers as we watch pregame skates, skate-arounds. It'll be
the best part of the gig.
It'll be a ton of fun. Oh, it's the best.
So much fun. That's Alex Stalock, guys. A new part of the FanDuel Sports Network broadcast team for your Minnesota Wild. October 9th is the first real game. September 25th is the first preseason game, less than a week away. After a quick break, we're here to put a bow on the show. You're listening to Wooden Sticks here on the Talk North Podcast Network. All right, we're back on Wooden Sticks to put a close to the show. So much fun to hear from Alex Stalock. That's the kind of insight you're going to get all season long on our broadcast. He's going to take you inside that locker room. I think to have Stalock in the mix this year specifically with Gustafsson and Wallstedt. Remember, Gustafsson's a guy that, they made that trade, brought him in from Ottawa. That was back in the Camp Talbot situation, and I don't think they realized what they had. And year by year, this young man has gotten bigger and better in terms of his talent and his set of skills. And now he's looked upon as one of the top-end goaltenders in the National Hockey League. When you have an over-under at 29.5 wins, you're in the conversation with some absolute studs in this league. You can go on to DraftKings Sportsbook and look where Gustafsson falls. And I think his responsibility as a go-to guy, as a big part of this team, gets magnified this year because Flower's gone, and Jesper Wallstedt is the guy that now becomes his partner in that blue paint. And having a conversation with both guys this week at training camp about their friendship and how they're like brothers, but they're brothers that like to compete and fight for that net. I think it's going to be a really interesting dynamic to the Wild season. And the better that Gustafsson can push, Jesper and help him along the way. And I think that the ripple effects of Marc-Andre Fleury, who, by the way, was in St. Paul at training camp yesterday. I know he's going to do the thing with the Penguins and play a preseason game and all that pomp and circumstance where it all started in Pittsburgh more than a couple decades ago, which is really cool for Flower and his family. But he was there, and he's going to be around these guys during the season. There's going to be a Flower effect that continues in this organization. His family's going to live here in Minnesota, which is outstanding, and I think could be a real factor in net with Gustafsson and Wallstedt as they try to navigate the grind of the National Hockey League season. For the record, I did bet over 29.5 on Gustafsson wins, and I think if he stays healthy and the Wild have anything remotely close to a decent season, remember, he did it last year, and they were missing a bulk of their roster the second half of the season. They had to fight to get in the playoffs. It came down to that last game, game 82. We all remember that, but he went over the total last year with all that drama, and knowing how well Flower played, a proven commodity, with Wallstedt being somebody that's still trying to prove himself. I don't know how Gustafsson, if healthy, doesn't get over 29.5. So that's one of my most strong opinions in terms of season-long bets in the National Hockey League. I think it's super intriguing that Kirill Kaprizov is 8-1 to win the MVP. And let me take this another level here in the final segment. If Kirill Kaprizov is 8-1 to win the Hart Trophy for most valuable player, and the Wild are 40-1 to win the Stanley Cup, let me count the teams that are ahead of the Wild in terms of cup winning percentages. Florida, Carolina, Vegas, Edmonton, Colorado, Dallas, Tampa Bay 7, New Jersey 8, Toronto 9, the Kings 10, Winnipeg at 25-1 is 11, then Ottawa, then the Rangers, then Washington. So you're talking about a couple 10, 12, 13 teams in front of the Wild in terms of lowest odds to win the Stanley Cup. Yet, in terms of the MVP, the Hart Trophy, McDavid is 2-1 on a team that's the fourth betting choice, and McKinnon is 5-1 on the team. It's also 9-1 and co-fourth choice. So the respect level that the bookmakers have for Kirill Kaprizov and the impact he can make on this team is extraordinary when you have that flip side that includes the Stanley Cup winning odds. Now, of course, I've got buddies going down to Iowa. Why wouldn't I spot up on the Wild at 40-1? I'm banking on this Kirill thing getting done. I meant what I said when I had the conversation with Stalock earlier in the show, that the positivity that I felt being in the room with those guys this week was real. Now, maybe they fooled me, and that's part of the deal. I get that. But I really felt like this thing is real close. We'll find out. If it's not done by opening night, then I'll start to think that I was maybe not seeing it as clearly as I should have been. But we got a couple of weeks to sift through that, and I wonder how much they're going to play him in the preseason, knowing that an injury could be bad for both sides. So we'll let it play out, and I'm going to trust that they're going to get it done. But I spotted up on the Wild at 40-1. I looked at the favorites, and I don't like betting favorites. So Florida is 6-1 to win the Cup. Carolina is 8. Vegas is 8.5. Edmonton and Colorado are 9-1. Dallas is 10-1. Those are your favorites to win the Cup. I looked at playing one of those favorites, and the more I looked at, the Edmontons, the Dallases, the Vegases, I'm like, no, if you're going to bet a favorite, you're going to bet Florida. We've seen the movie, and they know how to rest players. They're deep. They're physical. I'm not betting them at 6-1, but I'm not betting somebody else in that low single-digit number, like even Dallas at 10-1. I'd rather have Florida, a known commodity, at 6-1. Couple of numbers that caught my attention. Nashville made all those moves a year ago, and it took them a while to figure things out. They got off to a biblically bad start in the Music City. But let's not forget, the Sharps bet them down last year to 14-1 to win the Stanley Cup. They've got basically the entire roster back, and they're sitting out there at 70-1. Andrew Brunette, Darby Hendrickson, the vibe there, they get off to a better start. Just, it caught my eye knowing that they were 14-1 last year. The other team that catches my eye is that young team out in Utah. Having been out to Salt Lake City for the first time in my life with the Wild last year, I loved what I saw. I mean, those fans are embracing that hockey team. It's a wonderful atmosphere. They've got young, skilled players on that roster. They're the type of team that just might not know any better and might get off to a fast start and might ride some momentum. That's a team to watch. So Nashville 70-1, Utah 45-1, Minnesota 40-1 were the value plays that I found at the sports book. And if you want to go all in on a favorite, I know it's crazy, right? Because they were the runner-up and then they won back-to-back cups. And this isn't supposed to happen with the fatigue factor of playing into the summer. But I don't know how you go against the Florida Panthers sitting out there at 6-1. So I didn't do it, but I would not begrudge anybody if they went that direction. So that's kind of the preseason take from a DraftKings perspective. And I want to thank Alex Stalock for taking time to join today with some of his opinions. And I can't wait to hear some of your input again on my Twitter feed at Gorgamatic21. Have a great weekend. Hockey is kind of back now, but really going to be back in a couple of weeks. So the shows are going to ramp up right here on Wooden Sticks, of course, at the Talk North Podcast Network.